I'll pray for you. God, I thank you so much for Greg. I thank you for the wisdom and the heart for you that he carries. And I just pray, God, today that you would fill his words and flow through everything he says, and that we would have hearts to receive and grow from the wisdom and the truth that he's going to share. Amen.
Amen. Cool. Right, today we are in the last one of our series of what we're calling Tough Talks. Can anyone remember the other three that we've had? A series of four? Suffering,
Persecution.
Persecution, yeah. One more? Discipline, yes. Well done. Cool. So this one this week is counting the cost. Hopefully it's going to be a good talk, and we're going to have an opportunity to respond at the end, go back into a little bit of worship, hopefully. I'm very aware of prayer before we started today. Someone said, not too much of Greg, more of Jesus in this talk, so I hope I do that justice. Not sure I can promise it, but I'll do my best.
We'll let you know, don't worry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay, so next slide. Cool. So why do we even want to talk about counting the cost? And I think for us in looking at this series, there's some aspects of the Bible, being a disciple, that are actually pretty tricky to navigate. So things like suffering, discipleship, persecution, and also this thing of counting the cost. And in Luke 14, there's a series of parables that Jesus delivers about counting the cost. And this is one of them. This is the last one in that series. And it says, or suppose a king is about to go to war against another king. Won't he first sit down and consider whether he is able with 10,000 men to oppose the one coming against him with 20,000? If he is not able, he'll send a delegation while the other is still a long way off, and will ask for terms of peace. In the same way, those of you who do not give up everything you have cannot be my disciples. So they're pretty striking verse there for us, and that's the kind of that's where we're coming from. So there are these verses in the Bible that have this call on us that is basically saying everything. So that's where we're coming from. Now, what I want to start with, slightly tangential, but in a relationship or marriage, often we have things that reoccurring themes in our walks and our journeys, and things that we constantly come back to, things that we go on with each other. Claire doesn't know this, but the next slide.
I was wondering if we discussed this before.
This says at the bottom, it says the word turquoise. And in our relationship, that's a contentious word, because is it green or is it blue? It's been this ongoing discussion for 30 years.
Blue, obviously.
We're both interested in colour. It's quite unusual in a marital relationship. Often, not always, but often, the woman or female in the relationship gets that sort of dominion. But in ours, as you can see, I'm interested in colour as well. And so it's been we've had some of our biggest arguments over colour, actually. 34 years coming up of marriage. Anyway, next slide, just so we all know. Oh, generally close to green and blue.
Just one Reddit comment.
Everyone in this room knows that's all blue.
We can, obviously you can find the opposite. As often is the case with blue, you can find any argument you want to. You can go find the other one if you want to. But anyway, the reason I'm saying that is that, next slide, one of the other things that we've talked a little bit more spiritual is we've always talked about, or for probably the last 25 years, is this phrase we have between us, which is Adam and Eve or the disciples. And basically what that is talking about is what did Jesus achieve on the cross for us? What was it about? And there's this sense that actually, Jesus, from terms of Adam and Eve, Jesus reversed what was lost in the Garden of Eden. He reversed that by his death on the cross. So there's this sense that actually a whole upheaval of all of that and a restoration of the possibility of this Garden of Eden, of us living in this way. And actually that's a real possibility. It's not just a thought. It was so significant what he achieved on the cross that there was this possibility. And then we have the life of the disciples, where all of the disciples bar one in the Bible were died or crucified, murdered. So we've got this tension between the two of them. What's our life supposed to look like? What are we actually striving for as Christians? That's the question I think that's up in the air for us, and it's been one that we've talked over for years and years. So there is this tension. We're aware of this tension, and that's what we're kind of looking at today, is this tension of counting that cost, what it is to follow Jesus, because it's in there, it's in the Bible, and it should be an expectation that there is a cost. So next one there. Doing well to remember them so far. Right, the biblical tension. So we talked about just this tension that we're aware of as followers of Jesus. And let's just have a quick look at the biblical tension. I don't want to, Claire says to me, sometimes you're a little bit scripture heavy with your talks. So there is a lot of references here, but just need a few people to maybe read them. But yeah, just try and give me a bit of grace with that. So next one. Boom. So start off really well. John 7:37. If any man thirst, let him come unto me and drink. Great verse. Really, really great. Second one. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Okay, next one. Matthew 21:24. Jesus told his disciples, if anyone wants to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will find it. And then this one here, Luke 14. Really, it was a moment, there were large crowds gathering, going with Jesus. It was a moment to kind of say, okay everyone, this is it, this is what you're going to go for. Could have been a moment saying, the first two passages where we're here, come, my yoke is easy. But Jesus, this is what Jesus says. Jesus turned to them, he said, if anyone comes to me and does not hate his father, mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even their own life, such a person cannot be my disciple. And whoever does not carry their cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. That's pretty hardcore to a large crowd of people. I think we've got one more. And then in Proverbs we read, honour the Lord with your possessions and the first fruits of your increase, so your barns will be filled with plenty and your vats will overflow with new wine. And then Acts 2 verse 46, this is about the early church. They worshipped together at the temple each day, met in homes for the Lord's Supper, shared their meals with great joy and generosity, all the while praising God and enjoying the goodwill of the people. And each day the Lord added to their fellowship those who were being saved. Now, there's some really different pictures there, aren't there? In those 6 or 7 verses that we've looked at of what it's supposed to look like. The last one here about the church, yeah, I'd like that. I'd like some of that. And some of the other ones, hating your own family, laying down everything, the cost of that, very extreme and very much more difficult to handle. So that is the tension that we're dealing with this topic. I just want that to sit with you for a minute. So as Claire said, it is Palm Sunday, Passion Week. We're working our way up towards Good Friday, when we remember Jesus on the cross, and then Easter Sunday, when we remember the resurrection. And there's a couple of passages that I want to read now, which talk about Jesus' journey. So next one. Bit through that one, I think. We'll take it in. Okay. Does someone want to read that?
As they approached Jerusalem and came to Bethphage on the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them, "Go to the village ahead of you, and at once you will find a donkey tied there, with her colt by her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, say that the Lord needs them, and he will send them right away." This took place to fulfill what was spoken through the prophet. "Say to daughter Zion, see your king comes to you, gentle and riding on a donkey, and on a colt, the foal of donkey."
Excellent. You do one more.
The disciples went and did as Jesus had instructed them. They brought the donkey and the colt, and placed their cloaks on them for Jesus to sit on. A very large crowd spread their cloaks on the road, while others cut branches from the trees and spread them on the road. The crowds that went ahead of him and those that followed shouted, "Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna in the highest!" When Jesus entered Jerusalem, the whole city was stirred and asked, "Who is this?" The crowds answered, "This is Jesus, the prophet from Nazareth in Galilee."
Thanks for that. So there's another version of this where the crowds are shouting, "Here comes the King of Israel." So this is like on the Sunday. This is just a few days before Jesus is crucified. This is the sort of reception that he's getting. All these people just saying how amazing, this is this is the Messiah that has come, that we've been waiting for, that has come for us. And then just a few days later, I think it's 4 or 5 days later, we have the Garden of Gethsemane, where Jesus is on his knees contemplating what happened at the cross. And so we go to that passage. Does someone else want to read that?
They went to
Oh.
No, go on.
They went to a place called Gethsemane, and Jesus said to his disciples, "Sit here while I pray." He took Peter, James and John along with him, and he began to be deeply distressed and troubled. "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death," he said to them. "Stay here and keep watch." Going a little further, he fell to the ground and prayed that if possible the hour might pass from him. "Abba, Father," he said, "everything is possible for you. Take this cup from me, yet not what I will, but what you will."
Okay, the next one.
Should I do that one?
Yeah. Then he returned to his disciples and found them sleeping. "Simon," he said to Peter, "are you asleep? Can you keep watch for 1 hour? Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." Once more he went away and prayed the same thing. When he came back, he again found them sleeping, because their eyes were heavy. They did not know what to say to him. Returning the 3rd time, he said to them, "Are you still sleeping and resting? Enough, the hour has come. Let the Son of Man is delivered into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us go. Here comes my betrayer."
I think that the juxtaposition of the two passages is probably one of the most stark different positions you can get of what Jesus was dealing with within a few days of each other. And he here in the Garden of Gethsemane contemplating with the full knowledge of what's going to happen to him, that he's really counting that cost. And one of the things I've been thinking about recently is, what was Jesus hoping for when he was on this journey? So once he realised what was being asked of him, what was he hoping for? And I sort of think, if you wipe away the sort of 2,000 years of theology that we've got through the lens of which we interpret it, as a God in human form, what was he actually thinking he was going to actually get out of this? Because you can imagine the riding in on the donkey, the realization that actually everybody is recognizing the Messiah. Everybody's recognizing, and then thinking, gosh, actually in a few days' time, I'm going to be killed. I'm going to be tortured, and then I'm going to be killed. It's such a huge transition from one to the other. How did he do it? How did he contemplate that? What was he thinking he was going to get, we were going to get out of that act. And it's really mind-blowing when you think about someone contemplating that sacrifice, that level of cost, and thinking, right, I'm going to go through with this. And I think one of the big questions is like, what is it that enabled and facilitated him to do that? In some ways might be helpful for us as we contemplate the cost for ourselves. And I found this passage later on. It's a reasonably familiar one, but I think it's quite helpful in a bit of insight on this. Jesus says this in John 15. He says, "My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has this than this, to lay one's life down for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends. For everything I've learned from my Father, I've made known to you." And what you get in this passage is the transition for Jesus into this place where he's seeking friendship. That's what he's seeking with us, is friendship. And he's saying, I no longer call you servants, I call you friends. And what we get just in this one little passage is a bit of a light bulb moment of actually what Jesus is seeing he needs to do is for his friends. And so he's actually laying his life down because he wants friendship with us. He's seeing that's what a friend needs to do, be up for doing. It's like that is the ultimate cost, is laying your life down for one's friend. That's what he's doing. So not just for the disciples, obviously for the whole world, beyond the Jewish race and nation, to actually for the whole world. And in that one passage we get that insight into him, into his the call on his life and what he's willing to do. And I think the thing that I've also realised is that if he was, the way that he contemplated doing that, the only way that he could do that was because of his relationship with the Father. And actually, it was that connection to the Father. He said, "For everything I've learned from my Father, I've made known to you." So actually, it was because of his relationship with the Father, he was actually able to contemplate doing this thing that otherwise would have been, I think, unable to have gone through with. Next slide. And there's this quote from Tozer, which says, "What comes into our mind when we think of God is the most important thing about us." And if you have a skewed view of God, the Father, you are not going to be able to walk this journey and to the same level as somebody that does. And obviously Jesus had that perfect relationship with the Father, and so was able to make the ultimate sacrifice, make that journey. I think this is Tozer was a theologian in the 1950s, and he wrote this down for Christians to basically really as a bit of a wake-up call for us, instead of saying, actually, if you've got a view of God that is actually distorted, we need to get it sorted, because we will not be able to journey with him and get all the fullness if we've got this weird view of God. And unfortunately, for some of us in the room, we've had a relationship with our own fathers and our own family that has not been straightforward. And in some ways, what Jesus wants to do is readjust that, because actually that can give us a real skewed view of God. So yeah, next slide. Yeah. The other thing is that sometimes it's really hard for us to understand what the nature of God the Father is. And we get the clearest revelation of God through Jesus. He is the ultimate revelation of God's heart and for us, and heart towards us. So I've heard people say, if you see it in Jesus, then that's something to hold on to. If you don't see it in Jesus, then that's something to question. in terms of God the Father's nature. So that's a really helpful thing. Next one. Yeah. So I wanted to just give a couple of quotes and recognition to people that I think have really counted the cost. Mother Teresa is one of them, probably inspiring a number of people in here. But she said about following Jesus, counting the cost. It's simple, so his instructions are simple and easy, but you have to love till it hurts and then love even more. And that is quite a hard thing to do, and I'm sure you can imagine. Next one I wanted to do. I just wanted to say this little story here about this guy, Pastor Yuri from Ukraine. So when I was out there last year, beginning of last year, I was at a church in Kyiv with a pastor there who was talking about this guy, and he said that when the Russians invaded Ukraine, they were gathering up pastors and torturing them because they saw them in positions of influence and authority. And this guy basically heard about other pastors having guns held to their heads and being tortured and stuff. And the Russians started phoning him saying, oh, we want to meet you. We want you to come to this meeting in the city that was in Kupiansk, up north of Kyiv. And so basically he decided, this is in February 22, he was going to get out, and he left the area and moved right to the west of Ukraine. And then he felt, I was hearing this story from this other pastor, this guy Yuri felt the conviction of God to go back. And he went back to this church in Kupiansk to basically serve the people there. And Rosie, who some of you know, went up when they reopened the church to help them reopen the church and get it ready for services again. And so this guy had gone away, fearing for his life with his family, and decided, actually, I'm going to go back. I need to serve God, and went back. And then I just heard about 2 weeks ago that he was killed by a bomb from Russia, directly aimed like an accurate bomb for his church building. And it was fortunate the congregation had just left. He'd just been holding a prayer meeting at the House of Prayer in this building, but he was killed in that meeting. And it's just like, wow. This last couple of weeks I've been thinking about this. I've been listening to lots of people that have counted the costs. I was listening to Heidi Baker this week talking about what it's like just a few weeks ago, what it's like in Mozambique and how she's risking her life. And there are these people out there that are really serving Jesus and taking huge, huge risks. So, next slide. So what about us? What does it mean for us in this room and for us in Stokes Croft? And then Claire's like, Mrs. Baxter Polymath, what is that? So I just wanted to tell a little story. Claire doesn't know this actually, because I only realised it a couple of weeks ago, and I haven't really explained it to her. But when I was 7, I spent the first 7 years of my life on like a housing estate in Kent, right on the east of the country. When I was 7, my parents decided they wanted like the good life, the kind of move right out into the middle of nowhere. So they came up right on top of the Mendips, like 1,000 feet up. Nothing there, just fields and a couple of houses. And so it was a massive shock for me. And so I ended up going to a little tiny village school, boy with a London accent in this little country school. And I just remembered this a couple of weeks, and I just had a bit of revelation about it. I remember it was like 2 days in, my mum bought me a football kit. We went out onto the football, this is total size, just a funny story. Went out on the football pitch to play football, got us to line up, everyone picked different people. Okay, I was picked for a team, I had my blue kit on, I was ready to go. But the thing is that I'd never actually played a game of football. I had obviously kicked a ball, but I had absolutely no idea what was going on. And so after a little while, everyone was getting quite annoyed with me. And because I just had no idea who was supposed to be doing what, how it all worked, and they totally knew because they'd obviously been playing for a couple of years at that particular school. And the revelation I had this last couple of weeks was that for years I thought that was my fault. How stupid of me not to. Then I realised it wasn't actually my fault. No one had taught me how to play it, and so I didn't know. But anyway, just a little funny side. Anyway, in the middle of all of that kind of craziness of transition, Mrs. Bax was this teacher in the school. I was in her class, and she was quite a crazy lady because she could literally do everything and anything. She probably really should have been the headmaster. Her husband was the headmaster, but probably 30 years on, she probably would have been, not him, because she had so much about her. And basically, she taught us, she literally said, I learned French at age 7, I was learning French, woodwork, we're just doing sewing, all kind of, everything you can imagine, nature stuff. She had it all going on in this classroom, like just crazy. But she was a bit of a formidable character as well. But the reason I'm saying all this is, not too much Greg, more Jesus, is that in the middle of it all, what she really did, what she often would say to us is that you have been given gifts for your life. What are you going to do with the gifts that you've been given? Each one of you is different person. What are you going to do with your lives? And it's really stayed with me what she said. And what I want to say to us is that the same thing is that actually each one of us in this room, we're all different. We're all children of God. God's absolutely passionate about each and every one of us, but we've all been given different gifts. And there is a call on each one of us. In this time, in this time in history, there's a call on each one of us of what to do with those gifts. And a lot of us we can make a lot of effort in being successful, or we can make a lot of effort in being significant. And actually, what do you want to pursue? A lot of you in your 20s, I'm not, I'm the other end now, but what do you want to do with the gifts that you've been given? And I think that is the question for you today, and I really want us to think about that, and also what is our relationship like with Jesus? How well do we know him on a daily basis? Are we really letting him speak to us? Is his will overriding our will in our lives? Your will, not mine. Big thing to say, isn't it? Okay, next slide. Cool. What I want to do to finish is basically read a couple of things to you, and I want to give us a little bit of time just to think about really to give us an opportunity. Jesus, we're all, in the next few days, we're going to be really aware of what the cost that Jesus paid to have that friendship with us. And I think it's a really good opportunity to think about that cost, the price that he paid, and actually what do we want to do? Do we want to respond to it? Do we want to give ourselves back to God? So I got these from Tool Station today, and we're going to get, and this is not to be too crazily heavy, maybe you just want to pass, I'll give you two that side, pass them out.
Visual aid in the sermon. So I like it.
Now just for this next next few minutes, I mean, just hold on to it. And actually, are you gonna?
Shall I read it?
Yeah, let me just say something first. What we're going to read, I'm not going to read it because I might be too intense.
Can't read it without crying.
This guy that we're going to read, basically, is a guy called Arthur Bassett. There's a really quirky film that he's done of his life that is absolutely amazing. It's really badly done, but it's brilliant because it depicts his life. But he's a guy that has visited, had a call on his life from God to basically drag a massive cross around the world. He's travelled over 38,000 miles around the world pulling this cross. He's been visited over 300 countries. And he's got some amazing stories and he tells it in the film. And I think that in terms of a film depiction of someone that's in love with Jesus, that gets it, I think there isn't a better depiction, I think, than I haven't seen one anyway, than what this guy, the way this guy walks with God on it. And I think the call for us, God is looking, someone says God's looking for lovers, not workers. And actually, that is the truth. Jesus absolutely is for us, and he really wants that relationship with us. What we're going to read is that when he started this journey, he kept a diary. This is his first day, and we're going to read from his last day, like 40 years after he started, two different things. So, and then we're going to listen to a track, and then these guys are going to play a little bit of worship response.
Yeah, so this is his diary on the first day before he actually had done any of the walking, the thousands of miles, and he didn't really know what he was facing, but so this is what he wrote. And he started in Hollywood. The sounds of the city night fill my ears, and the memories of today fill my mind. This is his first day. My aching, pained body and my blistered feet remind me of my humanity. I never dreamed carrying a cross would be like this, Lord. Oh, I need you, Jesus. Have mercy on me. I've never been a sportsman, and now I'm heading across America. I'm thrilled. I can feel the excitement of the unknown, and I'm ready to take the Jesus movement from coast to coast. It's also frightening, but I will not be deterred from your will. You are with me, and your presence is enough. It's been a wild day, but people prayed, and I can still smile. I love you, Lord. And then 38 years later, having travelled thousands of miles and stood before kings and presidents and been shot at and run out of town, this is his last day in Zanzibar in Africa. My emotions almost overcame me as I lie tonight by the sea. The walk is complete, and I am alive. It's terrible. And I am alive. I will miss the long walks with just you and me along the roadsides of the world, Lord. You, Jesus, have been my constant companion, and I can hardly conceive of living without our intimate times on the road or at night on the roadside. There is nothing like being with you, and the wind in my face in a distant land, or feeling your presence in the midst of danger and conflict. It's been a long journey around the world, but my heart feels young and my body fresh. You know, Jesus, I feel better than I did that first day 38 years ago. Today at early dawn you asked me to lie on the cross. I did not want to do this. I had never had before, but I obeyed you. You reminded me of the scripture, I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless, I live, not I, but Christ lives in me. Galatians 2:20. As tears washed my face, I cried so hard I could hardly breathe. You had said, the world is open to you. You are free to carry the cross and minister Jesus to all the world, wherever I lead you.
Right, should we stand up? Oh, okay, just wait. We're going to listen to the song first. Do you guys want to get